Hey YouTube family, welcome to my page. Listen, this is a bit of a first for me. I've never gone into detail about my personal life and certainly not my sexual activitamente, but upon first releasing the news about my little baby, I have been inundated with questions about how it all happened. Now, contrary to what I was told as a teenager, which was basically somewhere to the effect of, if you so even look at another boy, you're gonna get pregante. That was my mum, by the way, and no, she's not that strict. But she was strict enough that I was very, very, very scared into the idea that I was a walking, talking, baby making machine. So I was very, very careful, and I honestly have no regrets. However, at 19, I was encountering some pretty intense health issues around my period. Long story short, well, I actually decided to come off the pill. Actually, hey, by the way, this is a really good time to just jump in here with a little disclaimer to say, this is my story. Obviously you know that, right? But if you're 19 and you're watching this, in fact, anyone watching this, please don't make any changes without context or without having, a conversation at least with your doctor, with your physician, with your professional. I have to say that. You understand that, right? So anyway, I made the decision with my gynae at the time to actually come off the pill and let my body regulate. Now I'm now 36, and between 19 and 36, despite having many boyfriends and play friends, I never got pregnant. Not even once, like not even a tiny little scare. Now this would also be a good time to tell you that I have exercised and trained relatively hard my entire life. Now, as an elite gymnast, I trained for over 20 hours a week, and I did that for 8 years. Following that, I was a dancer, and then I even had a stint in bodybuilding. And then I spent the rest of my days just training hard because I genuinely love to do that. I stay very active, and at some parts of my life, like I would say bad breakup parts of my life, bad breakup eras, I was undereating. And it wasn't a choice per se, it was sadly just like straight up stress and low-key breakup anxiety. Pretty high-key actually. It was preventing me from being able to really eat properly. Like my saliva glands actually started to dry up. I really struggled. Anyway, I'd actually resided to the fact that despite the maternal energy that I had inside of me, that I might just not really have kids, and I was like sort of okay with it. Even though I knew that I wanted to experience it, but I was also like willing to accept it. Now on the other side of things, I grew up in a tumultuous family setting, so I know the impacts an emotionally charged, unsettling upbringing can have. And based on my previous partnerships, I was kind of like, am I history repeating? Like, am I gonna be able to meet someone that isn't gonna make me feel unsafe and anxious all the time? Am I gonna meet a partner that I really wanna have kids with, that is really gonna help me to create the safe environment that I didn't really have, that I wanted to have? Little did I know. In reality, this is something that I had to fix myself. I was just projecting onto my partners, but it's probably for like a podcast or another longer video on relationships. Anyway, in comes this guy and I'm like, uh-oh, I think this one might be healthy and might be the one. And did that make me want to run the other way? Is this out of the scope of this video? 100%. Anyway, 2 years later and we've decided that we actually do kind of want to make a family. I have been training hard. I've been under immense amounts of stress trying to get myself through full-time uni, run a business that exists in the UK, but I'm currently in Australia, and take care of my mummy who honestly nearly died from an aggressive cancer treatment. So being honest with myself, I really knew that my body, actually honestly not my mind, it just really wasn't in the right place to 3D print another human. Now I went on a mission to sort my life out, to start taking care of my body in a more nourishing way. Now, here's the part where I need to tell you that all of what I'm about to say is just stuff that I personally did, and obviously you know that. But some of it's evidence-based and other stuff is just an intuitive feeling that I had about what was going to be helpful for me. I know that this can be a really frustrating journey. I know how unsexy it can be, how unromantic, how unlike the movies it can be, and how sad and full of loss it can be too. So I really hope that what I share helps you in some way, or maybe gets you to think differently about health or your approach. Intro aside, here are 5 things that I did, that I changed, that I introduced to get me pregante. I had to reduce my training and increase my calories. Now, I'm one of those people who can very easily skip meals, and when my stress is really high, I actually tend to undereat. Now, it's not a conscious choice, it just happens. And so my dieting or nutritional intake tracking is usually around how do I eat more for performance rather than less. Now, this was the case for pregnancy. I knew that I had been under eating and my recovery was slow. I was stressed. I'd fallen into this really shitty habit of snacking on protein bars that I could keep in my bag at uni instead of eating proper nutrients. So I started to make the conscious effort to eat more balanced meals that were, yes, definitely high in protein, but also higher in fiber and carbohydrates. Now, I also started eating in a slight calorie surplus. Now, I didn't spend too much time calculating this, but I did know that I'd been in a sort of, as I said, involuntary stress-induced caloric deficit for quite some time. I calculated the meals that I would need to make up the calories that I wanted, and I also stopped training every day, and that was hard. And I started back on my Sculpt program, which was focusing on 3 times a week, or weight training 3 times a week, along with some really easy steady state cardio on the days that I wasn't training. Now that I'm pregnant, I'm really sad that I can't do that program, but I can't wait to get back to it because honestly, the glute gains, they were chef's kiss.
Not working.
My partner and I completely stopped drinking alcohol, and here's the thing. The relationship between light to moderate alcohol use and female infertility in the research, kind of broadly speaking, remains kind of unclear. I'm gonna give you some findings and I'll link the paper below that I took this from. So, an 8-year study of 18,555 women found no link between alcohol consumption and ovulatory issues. But also, several studies observed no association between moderate intake and fecundability or fecundability. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Now, a study involving 40,000 pregnant women noted that those consuming moderate alcohol had a shorter time to conceive compared to non-drinkers. That seems like counterintuitive. Conversely, a Danish study found that women consuming 1 to 5 drinks per week, as well as those drinking more than 10 drinks a week, had a reduced likelihood of achieving pregnancy. Also, a Swedish study highlighted that high alcohol consumers were more prone to seek infertility treatments than moderate drinkers, while low consumers were less likely. These are all Scandinavian studies now. Another Danish study suggested that women over 30, I'm 36, consuming 1 to 6 drinks weekly might face increased infertility rates compared to those who were drinking less than once weekly. Now, here's the thing, right? There are so many other benefits that can be achieved through giving up or very heavily reducing alcohol. And we both figured it would be a win-win situation. So this is obviously a very personal decision, but the things I've seen alcohol do to families, to people, I don't like it that much anyway. And to have this thing be this socially acceptable poison, I'm just not about it for myself, and I certainly was not about it for this particular journey. Now, another thing I started doing was I started peeing on sticks. Obviously not any kind of stick, an ovulation stick. So this is known as an ovulation predictor kit. OPKs are tools used to detect the surge in luteinizing hormone, or LH hormone, and it detects it in the urine. Now, a significant increase that typically occurs 24 to 48 hours before ovulation. Now, by measuring LH levels, these kits can help to predict when someone is most likely to ovulate, providing, pretty valuable indicator of the most fertile period. Now, this is especially useful for couples trying to conceive, as timing intercourse around this ovulation window can maximize the chances of pregnancy. There's always like a however. While OPKs are generally effective in pinpointing the LH surge, they can't guarantee that ovulation will actually take place. So it's, it's not completely foolproof. Factors like specific medications or conditions such as PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, that sounds getting so intense, can also influence the kit's accuracy. And that was something that I was really dealing with because a few months prior to actually starting the journey, I had just been diagnosed with PCOS. To be honest, I actually knew that I had it way back, actually. I had a lot of symptoms and I was just in denial. Now, if you're having trouble with conception and you have been diagnosed with PCOS, definitely do some research around PCOS in general. Like the more that you can understand there, the better it is. I think the more equipped you can be. Now, I really believe that OPKs were definitely a game changer for us because once I started following the rules with them, like actually respecting them, actually having sex on the day that I saw a surge rather than kind of being like, oh yeah, look at that, cool, was actually the time I got pregnant. It took 2 months for me to really understand how to use them properly. On the day I knew it was about to happen, I made sure that we did dance twice. Now, of course, it takes a little bit of time to really come to understand how to use these things. They're a bit awkward. I actually also was using the Aura ring, but I was trying to use the Aura ring first as the only mechanism for understanding those hormonal shifts and when I was ovulating, but the change in basal temperature was so slight that I really couldn't understand. I'm gonna have to change the camera angle because this is like burning into my retina. As lovely as it is, it's gonna, this is not good. Let's just change. Alrighty, orgasm. It's a topic of heated debate in the scientific community as to whether orgasm actually plays a role in fertility. Now, actually, in some animal studies, it seems to, but it's a bit inconclusive in human studies. Now, I had read somewhere, true story, that post-copulatory orgasm was beneficial for conception. Now, by no means was this a credible source, but I was like, do you know what harm could a little post-copulatory orgasm do? Like, more fun for me, and if it gets me pregnant, then, double win. So I gave it a go, and well, all I can say is that after implementing that strategy, I got pregnant. Can I draw conclusions that it made me pregnant? Absolutely not. That would be bad science. That would be irresponsible. Was it fun? Categorically. Now, I know that it's a very controversial topic and a very personal choice. But if you enjoy orgasms, then I can't really for the life of me see why there would be a problem in leaning into it as a practice. I'm serious though. Like, can you think of a downside case? Like, other than false hopes? Which, hopefully I've already accounted for because this is not foolproof, right? But then I don't really see it being an issue. Now, I could be wrong. And I'm totally up for your perspective that I might not be able to see, and I'm open to broadening my horizons. Maybe religious reasons would clash. Anyway, it's what I did. It was great. I had fun. My partner had fun. We had fun. There's actually a really great open access paper that you can read on a study that was conducted whereby a group of researchers sought to design a method for women to investigate this kind of, guess you call a facet of fertility in an in-home based setting. Now, it was a 2016 study and they employed a very small group of women. I'm talking 6, okay? So very small. And it involved teaching them a technique that utilized a vibrator or a home massager to induce orgasm and introduce a stimulated sperm substance. So the primary objective was really to measure the retention of this sperm-like substance post-orgasm, comparing it to retention rates without orgasm. The results showed a significant difference. More stimulated or simulated sperm was retained during the orgasm than without. Now, obviously, these findings point to a potential link between orgasm and increased fertility through sperm retention, but warning, caution is really advised because it was such a limited sample size, and I mean, there's just so many variables that could be at play there. So I don't want to say this is science, you just got to do this thing. However, as I said earlier, I don't really see the harm in doing that. It just makes things more fun. I will link that paper in the comments below because they also, in their introduction, as I said, it's open access. So in their introduction, it does talk about the history of this very heated debate and gives you all the different papers that say it does and say it says it doesn't. Was that English correct? Not really. So sleep hygiene. So I had fallen into some pretty poor habits surrounding my sleep. Being at uni, working full time, driving 45 minutes both ways each day, sometimes twice a day to look after my mum while she was recovering was definitely really hard on my schedule and my brain. And I found myself just not being as productive and definitely staying up late to get work done. But in truth, I was staying up late on devices to get stuff done that I could have just waited to do the next day. And this was really disrupting my sleep and my sleep quality. So I made the effort to really double down on improving sleep and sleep quality. And my partner and I are very lucky to live in a 3-bedroom house, so we were able to sleep in separate beds. Something that if you have the luxury to do, don't let anyone trick you into thinking that it's not as romantic or it means your relationship's on the rocks. If it's not a necessity, if you're not restricted to 1 bedroom, then I just don't really feel like you should have to. And I really mean that. Now, of course, if you can't sleep separately, that's fine. Just make sure that you're practicing other sleep hygiene tips that I think are really useful. Like number 1, no devices in bed. This is also a little bit sexier, but like there's really nothing sexy about blue light in your face when you fall into a scroll hole, right? Or seeing your partner do that. Number 2, last meal 2 hours before bed. It can disrupt your sleep quality immensely. Number 3, paper books. Okay, these really help me to fall asleep to the point where I really think that I've trained my body to almost like a dog. It's like I open and then I'm just like, ugh, something to do with like paper. Number 4, we're really trying to sleep and wake up at the same time. And number 5, reducing light before bed. So we've actually switched to candles and lamps as opposed to like big overhead downlights. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it can interact with your circadian rhythm in a negative way, particularly at nighttime. So just making sure that you're switching off those lights. And number 6, a wind down stretch. Now, I've released loads over the years, actually, things that you can do to put your nervous system into a more calm state to help you to let go of your day and prepare you for bed. So make sure you check those out on my channel. I will be continuing to release a bunch of these because I do think that they're extremely useful, not just for improving sleep, but just reducing stress in general. Remember, if there's like a constant load on our nervous system, then we have to be doing extra things to try to counteract that. Got our sympathetic and our parasympathetic. Actually, you know what? If you want to know more about that, check out my podcast episode where I talk a little bit about this, the 2 sides to the nervous system and why we have to pay more attention or just as much attention to, you know, that relaxation side when we're trying to get results with our training, as much as we try and pay attention to, you know, all the hard work that we need to do. It's a lot of the time people, when they say that they think that they're overtraining, it's not that they're actually overtraining, it's that they're under recovering. But you know what? That is not what we're talking about right now. So those are my 5 tips. I know they're not going to work for everyone. They're not applicable to everyone, but I did promise that I would share them with you. We ended up conceiving naturally. Not that I think that there's a hierarchy of conception styles. I looked into egg freezing, but I really wanted to give those changes I've mentioned a serious go before embarking on the next parts. Now for the next baby, who knows? Thanks so much for watching. In my next video, I'm going to share more evidence-based information on training during pregnancy. There's so much conflicting information out there, but it's often not that it's conflicting, it's just that it can be tricky to make sweeping statements about pregnant people, actually. Because sometimes the stuff that works for some people may be a contraindication for others. If you enjoyed this video and made it all the way here, you may as well subscribe so you don't miss that next episode. And just let me know your comments and thoughts and your pregnancy conception journey. I would love to hear about it, and I'd love to create a nice, open, safe space for us to share our stories, our frustrations, any tips along the way. Obviously, I am not a doctor, so this was just really me sharing you guys a very personal insight into my journey. I'm sure that there are like little things along the way that I've probably missed. I'm trying to do this retrospectively, but look, stay strong, take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys either on the screens or on the mat very soon.